by Gurubsar, Lankar Ida Baguz in aid of Women's Day. On the contrary. Thus says the teachings of Vishnu. The most powerful being on earth is the woman because the woman can give birth to life from her body. When life began, the female sex was first, but the male was not yet there. The female sex then had a natural ability to multiply living beings, just like the snail-like creature, hermaphrodite, that is male and female at the same time. When the male gender did not yet have a right to exist, the female gender did exactly what nature expected of it in terms of multiplying with the givens through the play of nature. The truth is that man was born of woman. Without the female gender, the male gender would not exist today. That is how it happened, and not as the world religions have led mankind to believe and still continue with their self-made Adam and Eve absurdity and other made-up Women's Day. According to the Bible, the Quran, and other so-called holy books, God/Allah is of the male gender. This is evidenced by the fact that the Bible and the Quran treat women as disenfranchised, unclean, and backward creatures. It is clear that the so-called holy books are written by men, but that does not give men any right to position women as inferior and to make them subordinate to men. Numbers 30 verses 6-8. The humiliations in the books of God addressed to women emphasize the fact that the so-called holy books are in reality null and void. The man has consciously devised the concept of God for his own benefit and for the humiliation of another. But in view of the theory of evolution, women should not be said to be inferior. Nonsense. It is essentially shameless that women in general, lesbians, bisexuals, transgenders, and homosexuals are portrayed in the so-called holy books as inferior, dirty, and degrading. Leviticus 18 verses 22-23. Thus says the teachings of Vishnu, no one is more nor less than another. Yet there are people who have no self-respect and in self-resignation put up with the humiliation and contempt of the Bible and the Quran by being religious and projecting this self-devaluation onto others. It is clear to read in the biblical passages that the woman is portrayed as a sex object, seductress, conspirator, deceiver, traitor, liar, despicable, filthy, contagious, and disenfranchised. See Genesis 3 verse 16, Exodus 20 verse 17, Ecclesiastes 7 verses 26-28. The Vishnu society respects every right-minded person like no other, but rightly makes a comment on those who adore a religion while they are despised and dismissed by the same religion as filthy, worthless, unclean, and inferior beings with whom everyone can fool around with impunity. Thus says the teachings of Vishnu. Whoever does not know self-respect will not respect others. But then danger lurks where it is often not expected, for the misbehavior that results from disrespect can facilitate malice. Look at the women of IS and their sympathizers for this. These women were not sacred during that reign of terror. They were just as guilty as the men at the front and have contributed to many human rights violations to maintain their supposedly privileged position with all the horrors that entail. In reality, for Muslims, the headscarf is the symbol and license of rape, female humiliation, lawlessness, oppression, abuse, and arbitrary slavery on behalf of Islam. Those women meekly allow all this to happen while they are described in the Quran as scum and prey of the male community. Look at the countries that worship Islam, including Indonesia, Brunei, etc., where Muslim women walk around with their noses in the air and think they have a certain high position when wearing a headscarf, while the opposite is stated in the Quran. That in Islam women are inferior is evident from the following texts. See Surah 2:228, men are a degree above women. Surah 2:223, your wives are your field, so come to your field as you please and do good to yourself. So a man has dominion over his wives' bodies as he has dominion over his land. A woman is a sex object, nothing more? Bukhari 6:301, Muhammad said, the reason why two women are equal to one man's testimony is that women lack intelligence. Bukhari 6:301, Muhammad said, isn't it true that a woman cannot fast and pray during her period? The women answered in the affirmative. He said, this is a defect in your faith. Allah thus indicates that women are deficient in their religion. So, even if the woman wears 10 headscarves or more on her head and even if she prays all day long, according to the Quran, the woman will remain the salt of the earth for eternity. Hadith, Sar al-Ummul, verse 2210, indicates that 99% of women go to hell. Bukhari 2:28, hell is made up mostly of women. The only women in heaven, once mentioned by Muhammad, are the virgins who are supposed to serve the sexual desires of men, and the earthly woman ends up in hell after her death to serve Satan as a sex slave. That's nice, the men have fun and misery awaits the women. Bukhari, 62:81, the Prophet said, the provisions of the marriage contract, which are most to be observed, are those by which you have the right to enjoy her private parts. In other words, the most important thing a woman brings to a marriage is between her legs. Abu Dawud, 2155, women are compared to slaves and camels because of the evil in them. Muslim, 4:1039, Aisha, Muhammad's favorite wife, said to Muhammad, "You have equated us with dogs and donkeys." Abu Dawud, 2:704, the Apostle of Allah said, "When one of you prays and a dog, donkey, pig, Jew, magician or woman disturbs the prayer, it would suffice if they were a stone's throw away walks in front." Remember, not every Muslim is a Salafist, but every Salafist is a Muslim. Today, modern preachers of the Christian faith, in their own interest, preach a moderate and adapted religious doctrine to save their church from destruction. They claim, regardless of their religious teachings and under pressure from the church people, to accept the salt of the earth as a child of God. But the moderation shown is only a smokescreen to deceive fellow human beings and to make money from them, according to the statement, "You surrender your inheritance to us, or you will burn in hell." Leviticus 20 verse 13. The pious population is so naive that they fail to see that a murderer's book cannot bring peace or change to their lives. Yet the believer with Elon claims to recognize the love of their God/Allah, the mass murderer. It is therefore no wonder that in many countries, including Suriname, where a mass murderer, a bank robber, and drug criminals are worshipped by the religious population and placed on a higher pedestal to rule the people. Learned young is done old, and example leads to follow. Thus says the teachings of Vishnu. Goodness is praised but dies a bitter death, because goodness deceives by the appearance of wickedness. Meanwhile, there are hundreds of gods and goddesses to whom one can pray, but not one is able to answer. Despite all the wickedness promoted by the Bible and other religious books, I would like to reassure the religious man by saying that not everything in the Bible, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, and Quran is wrong. Only the page numbering is correct and the paper used is of sublime quality. No more.
Addition of a female Putu. A lie is still a lie even if everyone believes it. We, women, are not inferior. All men who hide behind faith are essentially the lesser ones. Someone who is really strong dares to be who he or she is. There is nothing worthy of the title of God if it allows women to be treated this way. The same women who provided the earth with men. And perhaps that is precisely where the fear of those men lies. That is why they have created a God to suppress us fearfully and to make themselves more important. Be proud of who you are, a beautiful female being who has been given the creative power of nature. Ladies, free yourself from the yoke of these faint-hearted